So I know it's been a while since I've been back with one of these, and I'm just going to try and do a vlog today. I've been doing the, what do you call them, the photo challenges on Instagram, so I just figured, okay, well, it's something to do, keeps me occupied, takes up my time, but they're also just fun to vlog about. I always like sharing what I did during that time. So the one I'm actually going to be talking about right now is the Month of Macabre, My Bloody Valentine edition. This actually was created by the Month of Macabre page, so you know, please excuse all of the, you know, looking at stuff, but I actually have my iPad in front of me, so I'm just pulling up what I had done on Instagram during that time, just kind of trying to make things easier for me, because can you really remember 30 plus challenges? That's a lot of stuff. But yeah, same as last time, I'll go ahead and post on the side the picture that I had chosen for the challenge. So day one was something blood red. So I actually went Comic-Con 2013 edition of Carrie, which basically just has the solid red cover and the spilling little bucket. So I mean, I just figured, okay, well, you know, Carrie's probably a no-brainer, but just the fact that the whole thing is red, I just thought that was pretty awesome, so I just figured, why not? Day two was best stabbing death in a film. I actually went with House by the Cemetery. It was the first time I had actually ever seen anybody get stabbed in the back of the throat and go out the mouth. You know, I just thought that was just freaking awesome. You know, just the fact that just right off the bat they throw something like that at you. I guess it's just very reminiscent of the way anyone who saw the remake of Maniac, you know, the one opening scene where the girl's about to scream and she just gets stabbed, you know, just like right through the hyoid, comes right out the mouth. I mean, that's just very reminiscent to me. I just thought it was just freaking awesome. But yeah, first time I had ever seen that, so it definitely left a big impression. Day three, best horror couple. They're not necessarily a horror film, but I always think Mickey and Mallory, they're perfect together. They're just bats in the belfry crazy, so why not? Day four, horror movie with love. I went with My Demon Lover. I know a lot of probably doing things like To Sir with Love, or I can't think of anything right off the top of my head right now, but that's just the first thing that came to mind. It's always been, you know, one of my favorite, I guess you could say, horror-themed chick flicks. You know, I just think it's a very interesting film, very underrated. Not too many people talk about it, so I just thought it was just a very fun film. And I mean, honestly, I mean, how often do you get to see Scott Valentine in a film these days? So yeah, I definitely went with that one. Day five, biggest bloody mess. With that one, I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. I went with the elevator scene in The Shining. It doesn't get any bloodier than that. You know, it's just very visually stunning. It's an awesome scene. I mean, I wouldn't mind having a poster of that on my wall. I just, you know, think that's freaking amazing. It's about as hypnotic as staring at a fish tank. Day seven was a choice between Lillian Herman and Morticia and Gomez, so obviously I went with Morticia and Gomez. To me, they're just a more classic couple. One of the things I liked more about them is that they're a lot more dark, but I think they're a lot more approachable and realistic as well. Lily and Herman, I mean, to me, they're more the equivalent of just a regular, everyday couple just dressed up in Halloween costume. They're more modern, I guess you could say. It's kind of like the equivalent of, say you took I Love Lucy and dressed them up in goth clothes. That's, to me, the equivalent of the Munsters, whereas, I don't know, the Addams Family is just always a lot darker. They always appeal to me a lot more. They were not as sitcom-y, they were more satirical, but they were more realistic. So I definitely respect that a lot about them. And it's also just the fact that they're very dark parents, but they're also just very loving. They definitely care about each other very much, and they also really care about their children. So I think, you know, if anybody were to be, you know, an alternative parent, I think they're excellent role models. Day six, best death scene through the heart. I didn't want to do any of the tired stabbings, getting axed or stabbed or whatever. That just gets so old and tired after a while. It's hard to actually come up with something original. But I definitely think, you know, even though it's extremely painful, I think a very awesome death is Alien, the chest burster. First time I ever saw that, it just completely left field, took me by surprise, and I'm sure a lot of people had that reaction, and it's just a freaking awesome scene. Day 8 was Scariest Girl in Horror. I know a lot of people went with female characters, but I actually went with actress Fairuza Balk. She's very feminine, very beautiful, very femme fatale, but she definitely has this attitude about her as well, to where you definitely wouldn't want to mess with her, you wouldn't want to get on her bad side, and to me, that's the epitome of the perfect woman, is where you can actually stand strong by yourself. You can be admired, but you can still be beautiful and feminine and respected. I think that's an excellent combination. Day 9 in horror, once again, I didn't choose a male character. I actually went with Christopher Lee. As far as male actors, he's definitely one of the ones I respect the most. And I mean, why not? He's a freaking living legend. He's been in so many notable things. He's still around. He's still working on stuff. He doesn't just stay at home. He's definitely not of the old school variety where, you know, after a certain age you just disappear into silence, you just kind of subtly fade into the background. He's still around, he's still working, and he's freaking Dracula. That's awesome. I think he's one of the better versions of Dracula. Just the crazy red eyes. Wouldn't you feel intimidated if you saw something like that? Other than if it were a person who were not stoned, of course. Day 10 was best one-liner in a horror film. I had to go with The Exorcist. I know I've quoted it in previous challenges, but what an excellent day for an exorcism. That's just a total challenge. You have this supreme creature that's totally in control of the situation. Yes, it's suspended to a bed and you may think you have the upper hand, but there's a whole bag of tricks there and you just really don't know what you're in for. Day 11, worst use of romance in horror. I couldn't really think of anything that would be possibly considered an abortion as far as, you know, romance in a horror film is first thing that came to mind. I knew the film, I just couldn't think of the name because that's how much it did not interest me, and that was Warm Bodies. I literally had to Google it because I could not remember the title of this frickin' film. I still haven't seen it. Literally does not interest me. Day 12, best horror fight sequence. May not necessarily be the best horror fight sequence as far as what's awesome or mind-blowing or anything, but I went with Dead Alive, the scene with the priest and the zombie creatures, the whole I kick ass for the Lord. It's just hilarious, and I know that scene's been used in some other recent films. I honestly can't remember what. Day 14 obviously comes up on favorite scene in My Bloody Valentine. I went with the original just because I've only watched I've only watched the original and the remake. The original I've only seen twice, the remake I've only seen once. Quite honestly, the movies just don't interest me. I think they're dull, but the original, it definitely had a lot of inventive gore, a lot of breaking stuff that was created for the film, which unfortunately got cut out and didn't make it later until, you know, the extended version, which was released later. So I would definitely go with just basically any gore scene, like the pickaxe up through the throat, out the eye. How often do you see something like that? Yeah, definitely some very interesting gore scenes in there, so I just kind of collaged my favorites. Day 15, best punch to the face. On that one, I actually went with From Dusk Till Dawn. It probably wasn't the best punch, but it's just the fact that George Clooney totally got smacked, fell on the ground, got up like nothing, took it like a man, did not take it out on the preacher character which punched him. He just basically stopped, clarified, and explained himself by what he meant, because obviously the character took offense, which is why he got smacked in the first place. And sorry about all the crazy lighting going on right now. I think my camera is about to die. I've noticed the pictures getting worse, and I usually don't like posting things where camera video just goes light, dark, but I've already started this thing. It's a very long thing. I still have a long ways to go, so I'm just going to try and push through it, and hopefully I can finish before my camera dies, and hopefully the changing video quality doesn't annoy you too much. Sorry about that. Day 16, favorite horror shirt. I'm not wearing it right now. I didn't have time to look for it, but It's going to be the Nightmare on Elm Street. I have the female version, but it's basically just the original poster. You have Nancy cowering in her bed, and you have Freddy's claw looming over her. Day 17, Best Revenge Film. I would have to go with Pumpkinhead. That creature is just completely ruthless. He really toys with people's minds, but the ultimate price in order to be avenged or feel that you've righted a wrong that was against you is that you actually pay by becoming the creature itself, which I guess you could say is somewhat of a curse as well, but that is one freaking vicious creature. Day 18, Most Psychotic Villain. I didn't actually go with a person on this one. I actually went with the Overlook Hotel because a villain doesn't necessarily imply a person, a creature, an animal. It could be an entity, in this case a haunted hotel, which has basically taken on a personality of its own due to all of its residents, especially the original The Shining, the hold it had over Jack Nicholson, and the character who has just played so well. I definitely had to go with Overlook Hotel on that. Day 19, Best Plot Twist in a Film. On that one, I went with Identity. You know, it's definitely a very dark thriller, but I really didn't see the twist coming. Usually in films, you get very heavy foreshadowing or some type of indication, and maybe it just flew past me, but I just really didn't pick it up, and I thought it was just very well executed. I thought it was an excellent film, and you know, it's basically just the first thing that comes to mind when I think of a twist ending. So yeah, definitely very well done. Day 20, Best Soundtrack. I know a lot of people go with The Lost Boys. I also think it's an excellent soundtrack. Unfortunately, it's not one I own, but one of my go-tos is Queen of the Damned. I know it's pretty much become fairly dated, but I mean, it's an excellent soundtrack. Definitely surpasses the film, unfortunately. But there were just a lot of writing and technical issues going on with that film to begin with. So yeah, excellent soundtrack. Not the best film, but I'm not going to hold that against it. Day 22, Scariest Film Location. I know a lot of people went with scenes in films that they thought were creepy. I actually was lucky enough to visit the original murder house from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Obviously, I had my photo taken on the front steps. The skirt I actually chose to wear that day was actually a skirt that was actually used in the remake as well. I guess I just fortunately happened to be lucky enough to be shopping at the same store that the wardrobe person for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake happened to be shopping at, and luckily I actually have pretty much a copy of the same skirt that one of the girls in the film. Yeah, I definitely love that skirt a lot more because of that. I mean, sometimes it's just cool to see something that you own worn by an actor in a movie or a TV show, and I don't know if this has ever happened to anybody else, but it's definitely fun to see. Day 23, Last Horror Film You Saw. At that point in time, I hadn't really been watching too many films, so the last thing I had seen was Season of the Witch, and that was actually something my mom had purchased. She also enjoys horror films. She's also a very big Nicolas Cage fan, so that's what we watched during one of my last visits back home. Day 21, Favorite Horror Poster. I think I've mentioned this in the past as well. The original poster to Pet Sematary, definitely an awesome poster. Victor, Pascal on the upper half, and then you have Church and the Pet Sematary on the lower end. And even just looking at that, it's quite unsettling. Not necessarily unsettling in the sense to where it'll really mess you up, but you know, just the imagery. You really don't see stuff as strong as that on posters nowadays. Day 24, Best Weapons in a Film. I had originally chosen Blade. I loved all of his gadgets. I thought they were really cool. Day 26 was a favorite horror website. I went with horror.com. It's a website I used to frequent a lot when I was younger. I really don't go to too many horror websites. I still pop up every once in a blue moon. It's not really a website I visit too much, it's just the first one that came to mind. Day 27, an underrated horror film. I went with Frailty. Matthew McConaughey does an excellent job in that film. It's also one that I don't hear too many people talk about, and excellent cast, great storytelling. It's one I've already reviewed before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll probably throw the link up there somewhere if anybody feels like watching that. Day 28 was just pretty much a choose your own image. It wasn't really a question, so I just went with horror godfathers, Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, all the iconic people. No reason in particular. I think they're basically everyone's go-to guy whenever it comes to horror film.